Hey guys, this is the Theuberelite, and this is a video covering Spectres currently in the closed beta in the Fall of Oriath. So far we've gotten 3 new acts, which means a whole lot of new mobs, which all have potential of being used as a Spectre in a summoner build. So in this video I'm going to be going over some of the mobs that I feel have potential for being used as a Spectre. As a side note, during the course of this video I am using a trick that lets me get high-level Spectres by bringing in a low-level version of it and desecrating it in a map. For more information on this, please read the description if you don't know how to do that. So let's start off with a Spectre that everybody's talking about in the beta, Katava Heralds. These are mobs from the Cathedral rooftop that are extremely tanky and also have quite good damage. They also have a lot of abilities. They have a ranged spell, a leap slam melee attack with added damage as fire, and a cleave, as well as, of course, a default attack. The amount of abilities they have results in them not really using their default attack too often, so you don't have to worry about using melee splash on them too much. Unfortunately, it does exist, and they don't have an amazing amount of AoE, so these Spectres don't end up being very good for clearing maps, and they don't actually have that great of single target either. If you want a Spectre that'll tank for you, these are pretty much the ones to go to now, though. These are absolutely incredible at staying alive, and you can support them with just about anything. You don't even have to focus on making them more tanky like I have in the video right now with the Fortify setup. If you want to focus on their ranged ability, you'll probably want to use something like GMP and Echo, simply because they will be able to use their ranged ability twice in a row. And if you want to focus on their melee abilities, you'll probably want to use things like melee fizz, minion damage, increased AoE, added fire, things like that. In all honesty, this Spectre is not very good if your goal is to make a build that's focused primarily upon Spectres. They're more useful in something like an SRS build that just wants some more minions that will take aggro and be able to tank for you. They are pretty much the best in their class for that, and so they definitely have a place in the game right now for a summoner build. Next up, we have the Sanguine and Blessed Sisters. These can both be found in the Chamber of Innocence and the Torch Courts, respectively. They're both mobs that use Magma Orb, and they use it rather aggressively, too. These Spectres could potentially rival Flame Sentinels in the amount of area cleared, however, they do have a couple issues that put them below, in my opinion. First of all, it's the fact that they have a default attack. They're not a pure caster like Flame Sentinels, and so they will run up to mobs sometimes and just default attack them. The second is that they're not nearly as tanky as the Flame Sentinels and definitely do die more easily. However, they are quite good and they definitely do more damage and have better AoE clear than Flame Sentinels in my opinion. My recommended links for sure are definitely to use Spell Echo, LMP or GMP, and minion damage. After that, if you're willing to take this up to a 5 or 6 link, you can choose between Elemental Focus, Fire Penetration, and Control Destruction for your last 2 links. These Spectres have a lot of potential, but unfortunately, because of their default attack, I don't see many people using them over something like Flame Sentinels. Next up, we have Temple Educators, which use Ball Lightning and Stormcall. These are located in the Chamber of Innocence. It should be noted that there is an alternate version also located in the Torched Courts, however, they seem to act way less aggressive than the Temple Educators, so I would not recommend them. They use Stormcall and Ball Lightning, and it should be important to note that their Stormcall is a little bit different than our normal Stormcall in that it actually starts off as a physical-based spell, but converts 80% of its physical damage to lightning. This means that Hatred and things like it will actually scale Stormcall's damage. Unfortunately, they do cast rather slow, and their damage and AoE cover is a bit subpar, and On top of that, if you're using zombies, you're probably using things like added fire and hatred, and you might be using something like elemental equilibrium, which would mean that something like ball lightning would actually hurt your damage with these specters. They are very interesting though. Their ball lightning seems to do a lot of damage, but they seem to primarily use Stormcall. They also have a default attack, which is definitely also a downside to them. I personally ended up using Restoration, Minion Damage, and Spell Echo on them, but personally I would just say there are other much better options for you to use as Spectres. Next up, we have an interesting Spectre. This is the QKU Hummus Vanguard. These are found in the Mudflats, Coast, and Karui Fortress in Act 6. They summon a totem that does Scorching Ray, and yes, Scorching Ray totems do stack their damage. Their Scorching Ray's fire debuff actually is a little bit worse than ours at 1% per stack. However, the amount of damage these Scorching Rays do actually ends up being quite good, and the fire resistance debuff is still there, which actually does help things like SRS. So these are actually quite good, and they're some of the best Spectres for aiding your single target that I've found. This is especially good since in the beta right now, bosses have more than double HP than they used to in maps. So having that extra single target is actually really nice. Another thing to note about this is that if you support your Spectres with Spell Echo, you will actually make the totems turn faster. However, since I'm mainly using this for single target, I don't see a reason to use Spell Echo over just another damage support. Right now, I'm currently using increased burn damage, minion damage, and elemental focus on these totems. However, with the new support gems coming out soon, I won't be surprised if I end up changing these to use the new support gems in conjunction with these Spectres. I'm also very interested to see if the +1 totem shield would actually work with these on Necroagus, as interestingly, they do default attack a lot simply because if they've summoned a totem recently, they won't summon another one until the previous one expires. Which does actually mean that things like Restoration do cause them to cast the totem more often and cause them to be more active with their most damaging spell. You can also socket Fortify in them to make them extra tanky because they will almost always have Fortify up because they do default attack a lot. Overall, I've been very pleasantly surprised by these, and I really hope to use these some more, and I won't be surprised to see them in certain summoner builds in the future so far. Next up is the Temple and Heretical Guardians, which have Spectral Throw and Bubbles. These can also be found in the Chamber of Innocence and the Torched Courts. They're quite good, and they do a lot of damage, and you'll certainly feel that whenever you run into them in a map, especially if you don't have a cast on damage taken on Mortal Call. These things are really painful to go against. They're quite good, and as you'd imagine, they have okay survivability because of the bubbles. However, from my experience, if a boss gets on top of them, they will die extremely quickly because they don't have a lot of HP or defenses or anything. However, from my experience, these have been pretty good. I'm personally using GMP, minion damage, and I would probably go something like added fire or weapon elemental or physical projectile attack damage, or even minion speed for the fourth link. Personally, I think that Flame Sentinels are just better, but these are an interesting option. These also are really bad on single target, but they do play very ranged. They pretty much never go into default attack or anything. Perhaps these are worth looking into more, but because of their inability to deal with bosses, I don't think these will be used too much. Perhaps we just need the Spectre 100% life and more survivability options before they're actually good. And of course, saving the best for last, we have Frost Sentinels. These are a new mob type that are actually an Act 8 mob, so you can't get them anywhere outside of maps. And you have to be lucky enough to find them in a map or find somebody that has them in a map that'll help you out and give them to you. These are basically the same thing as Flame Sentinels, however, all of their abilities have been replaced with Ice Spear instead of Fireball. They even have the same resistances and everything. As such, they are extremely survivable, and they are very, very strong. They do crit a lot, and they also chill a lot of things for you. These are absolutely amazing, and probably the best Spectre that I've actually found thus far, other than the QKU Hummus Vanguards, in my opinion. The QKU Hummus Vanguards being great for the single target. These are actually really possible to build Spectres around, and I could definitely see a lot of summoners using these in the future. Unfortunately, also, it should be noted that if you are looking for these, you need to make sure you don't detonate the corpses, as it doesn't seem like you're able to desecrate these at all at the moment. My personal links on these have been LMP, Spell Echo, and Minion Damage. The last few links you would probably use are either Control Destruction, Cold Penetration, and probably not Elemental Focus, because the Chill and Freeze are very nice, unless you are shattering corpses a lot and don't have anything to Flesh Offering anymore. I would definitely recommend trying out these Spectres if you get a chance. They are really amazing, and I've been very pleased with the results of them. There are a few Spectres that I wanted to try but wasn't able to. One of them is the Corrupted Spitters from the Temple of Decay. They have a Poison Spear attack that actually poisons on hit, which would be rather interesting with the new support gems coming. However, I wasn't able to get high-level versions of them. Wailing Widows from the Cathedral Rooftop are also something that I wanted to try as something like a support Spectre, because they have temp chains on hit. However, these aren't able to be desecrated. Once again, another mob that can't be desecrated that I wasn't able to really try out was Wraiths from Cryptac 7. I did try them out while leveling a bit, and they did seem interesting. However, they seem to use their EK spell way too far away. They would try to max range everything for some reason, and so I'm not sure how they would fare at a map level Spectre, but they did do a lot of damage. Lastly is the Temple Scholars, which is basically just a reskin Cannibal Fire Eater. I would just go with Cannibal Fire Eaters instead of them. But maybe there's a reason to use them over the Cannibal Fire Eaters. Anyways, that's pretty much it. There will probably be some more mobs that get used as Spectres, or potential for Spectres as we get the new Act. Perhaps we'll have Act 9 and 10 mobs showing up in maps once we get Act 8. Who knows? Anyways, guys, this is Theuberelite signing off. Be sure to subscribe for more videos and follow me on Twitch to find out when I'm streaming. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later.